Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Buckle up. You're in for a treat. Can't wait to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here is a quote just for this episode. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. I don't know how I almost messed that up. Alexander the Great. There is nothing impossible for him who will try. Our guest today reminds me of Alexander the Great, a leader, a mentor to so many in their industry. Their career speaks for itself. Founder of the Hispanic Organization of Mortgage Experts, tenured leader, producer, leader by example in the mortgage industry. We'll get into the background there. Chief Growth Officer of Empower, leader of EPM within our EPM culture, a true culture man, someone that I can't wait to pick the brain of as it relates to company culture, leadership, helping take one of the top organizations in an entire industry from 10 billion in origination, meaning tens of thousands of lives changed, to 30x that in a period of just under a decade. And we'll get into that. There's so much more to say, but without further ado, Rogelio Goertzen, thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks for being part of the EPM culture, and thanks for being such a we met the first time and you already were like, hey Jay, you should meet this person. And anyone like that type of culture spirit is a friend in my book for life. So
Yeah,
thanks for coming on the
absolutely.
show.
Thank you so much, Jay.
I am curious. Right away, this was impressive to me. It looked like right out of school, you had interest in business administration. You were actually an office manager. So that's a leader, that's a position of leadership and one of the
Yeah,
top brands in the country in the insurance space. In fact, one of our regular guests on the show, hugely involved for almost 40 years, and I believe it was Farmers Insurance. Is that correct?
yeah, yeah, that's correct.
And that's an organization with so many decades of, I don't know how long it's been around, but it's a pretty serious organization. Uh, did you early on, did you envision yourself being in insurance? And that's my first question. The second is, you know, manager basically right away. So I want to
Yeah.
expand on how that happened. So yeah, did you envision yourself in insurance?
No, we stumbled up. I stumbled upon that by accident. One of my dear friends became an insurance agent, and then she convinced me to go and grow her office. So I did just
Wow.
that. I hired people to be on the phones, to field the leads, and just so much experience from that. And then we had a falling out, personally. We're still friends till this day, but we had a falling out personally, and then I didn't know what to do. So then I jumped into
Wow.
mortgages, right? And with that experience, that just catapulted me within mortgage. So I'm very fortunate for that.
Were there lessons in that profession, that very lessons or skills that or experience in that business that created what wisdom for immediate success in the mortgage business?
Absolutely. Well, in business, anytime things fail, it's a huge learning opportunity. Sometimes learning what not to do is more valuable than
Yeah.
learning what to do. And I was able to learn, very, very young what not to do in business, what not to do in culture. And it was a very interesting time, especially in insurance. Insurance is very hard, because it can be very rewarding, but it can be very difficult as well. So it was so many lessons were learned through that experience, and hiring people. I was young myself, but hiring people and then showing them how to be on the phones and how to do different things like that was very interesting. So I'm grateful for that experience.
Wow. Yeah, but so did you want to be an entrepreneur young
I don't know
or
what,
in
to be honest,
business?
I still don't know what I want to do. I think I want to be Jay when I grow up.
Me
Um,
too.
you know,
I'd like to grow up.
it's one of those things where you never really know what your path looks like. Like
Yeah.
success, we think that it's going to look a certain way, when it's not. And my biggest thing in life has always been I wanted to impact as many people as possible. And so
Mm,
I say yes to every single opportunity, with that in mind, with the goal of being able to impact more and more people. So even my entire career throughout my entire life has been saying yes. Me stumbling upon EPM and Empower was because
yeah.
I said yes. So yeah, I say yes to everything.
What was the transition like but from management to retail loan originator? Like what lessons did you pick up from that?
Well, luckily I had experience on the phone already. So
Yeah.
transitioning to be a retail LO, as it's hard for most people, but it was relatively easy for me. Um, and then from there, it was easy to build relationships just because you do it on the phone all the time.
What makes what um ruins or undermines a phone call before it's even started? Because we all have to
Um,
sell whether we realize it or not.
yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, it's the mindset. So in your mind, if you think they're not going to pick up, or they're not going to answer, or they don't want this service, you already failed. Like people can feel your energy throughout a phone conversation. And just by remaining positive, having that upbeat tone and being optimistic that the person on the end of the phone, I don't know what they're dealing with, whether that's mortgage or insurance. I have a service that I need to provide to them. They have a goal that they need in life. And I just want to make sure that I'm able to listen to their goal and
Mm,
align them with something that I have to offer.
mm. Well, this now you were with Rocket at that time, right? Correct?
Yeah.
What was the culture like at that time?
Whew, Rocket has gone through so many different changes in culture, but at that particular time, they were the nation's largest lender, and they were kind of struggling to grow their purchase segment.
Wow.
So I was on the purchase team, and everyone else was cranking out refis, and they've quickly learned that the purchase game is something that's very difficult to do over the phone. But I was able to, dig into that and help grow their purchase segment, before I stumbled upon UWM.
What so when you say dig it and unco what does that look like?
So
Like
it's
what did it take?
it was we were a fairly new group of people. I want to say the purchase team was probably about only 30 people.
Wow.
So they were beta testing all of it,
Wow.
and I happened to be one of the very first ones. So with purchases, it's more of a farming transaction where you don't know when they're going to purchase. So it's more of providing that value and building up that relationship, because they might purchase in 2 months, they might purchase in 6 months, or they might purchase in a year from now. So it definitely helped with my patience.
Uh, what were you not always patient? That's something you've learned like grew with over time or
I think that's something that we can always refine. We never know what is that one thing that, frustrates us, or that, especially in this industry, time is money. So we're always kind of pushing for that. So patience is something that I think you can always work on and refine, because you never know when you're going to feel impatient about something, or eager to do something that, it's just something that I try to master, although I think we will never master that.
now that was a call center calling on purchase
Yeah.
business
Yep.
from the mindset that makes that successful to when you elevated to work as an account executive, right? That advisor, that partner to the broker. How, and I want to expand on that and pick your
Yeah.
brain on that. What's the difference in culture or mindset, the stories that like the behaviors that the call center to borrower is versus like an independent broker to borrower? What's the difference?
Yeah. So one of the main differences is, when you're a loan officer and someone, frustrates you or things go sideways, you say, okay, that's all right. Let me find another client. But when it's business to business, they're not going anywhere. And this industry is so small, although it's big, it's small, that you'll end up running into them at a trade show. you'll end up seeing them. So you have to really, even
Ooh,
when
that's
things go
good.
sideways, you have to handle things with class and own everything and find that opportunity to just be a better version of yourself every day.
Yeah, I'd love to get into like the core values that make a successful accounting. Even just because we have a lot of listeners that are not in the industry. So can you just define what the account executive is
Yeah,
in your
absolutely.
way? Yeah, in your terms.
So there's two ways of doing business. One is third party origination, which is technically wholesale, and then there's direct to consumer, which is your Rocket and your Loan Depots of the world. So direct to consumer, that's where a consumer goes directly to the bank or the financial institution to get a mortgage, versus third party origination. That's where a mortgage company is signed up with a lender and an investor and sends that loan to them, so they own that relationship, and most companies have years of a relationship.
So let's say that when it comes to the account executives, um, you mentioned like class or because B2B, right?
Yeah,
You're seeing people. B2C, let's say I want to just give a scenario. Let's say somebody calls, I'm calling a consumer, it's not going well, the phone call, uh, I could lose my
yeah.
temper
You
or
lose your cool,
and it's like an
we have an
embarrassment
argument.
maybe in the office. It's an embarrassment. Hopefully I learned my lesson, but like I may never see that person ever again because there's
Yeah,
millions of people. So that's different incentive structure socially wise than be business to business. I'm calling on an independent business owner. This is the broker facing the
yeah,
consumer. You're saying, hey, you have to keep in mind you may see these people again. So that it's
yeah.
another level of what you call that emotional intelligence. What would you call that? Or what
It's another level of expertise and relationship building that you have to, your brand is everything. And that one broker owner might be friends with 10 other broker owners that if you mistreat him or you didn't handle it the classiest way, word spreads. And then suddenly you can tarnish your reputation. And then it would be very, very hard to get loans.
That's a great point. I think we could easily overlook that, but I think Warren Buffett said a reputation takes a lifetime to build and one interaction to tear down.
Yeah, absolutely.
What now was the transition from so it was call center to account executive? Was that a difficult one or did it come pretty naturally because the work that you'd done earlier with farmers and uh
With
it just
Rocket.
seems like it just seems like you have this leadership has been a big part of your life. I would like to learn where that might come from. But the
Yeah,
question is, yeah,
absolutely.
was it a hard transition
It,
or did
it,
it come
it
naturally?
it came naturally to me. And I think part of that was my family started the first Hispanic church in Windsor, Ontario, and it
No
quickly
way.
grew. Yeah. It grew from 5 people in my uncle's living room to 3,000. And I became the worship leader at a very young age, at the age of 12. So from a very young age, I've had to mentor and grow people and have
Wow.
skills that, other people wouldn't have. Um, so that's where
Holy
I think
cow.
that's where I think it all came from.
When did you go from Canada to America?
So I was about 4 years old when that transition happened, but we would still go to church in Canada because Detroit is only about, 15, 30 minutes away from Windsor.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what, so 5 to 30,000, that's an unbelievable organization, cultural development. What were some of the uh, early on? Do you have memories of what behaviors, rituals led to that growth? And how long did that take?
Yeah. It, well, by the time I think he started the church around like 85, 1985. And then by the time I was born in 92, the church was already a decent size. And then they had bought a building. I want to say probably about 5 years later, they bought an old Coca-Cola factory and they
Wow.
repurposed it all into a church. So it's always been a big movement since I was around. But my uncle, he was really a man of the people.
Wow.
And culture really, really matters. Like he
Yeah,
would
wow.
spend most of his time in prisons, visiting people in jail cells, spending time having conversations with them, with the homeless. Like that was, he spent
Whoa.
more time with the community than he did with his own family. Um, yeah, it
Amen.
was impressive to see just his servant leadership style.
Where was he from?
So he was originally born in Mexico, Chihuahua, Mexico,
Excellent.
and he's half German, half Mexican. That's where my German last name comes
Chihuahua,
from.
that's where Carlos Slim's from.
Yeah, yep,
He's like one of the wealthiest guys in the world.
yeah, yeah.
He didn't know him, did he? No.
No, no, no,
That's
no.
that's pretty good connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And then wait, when did he go to Canada?
He came over to Canada in the early 80s. So they started a church,
Unbelievable.
yeah, relatively fast.
Were there connections already there? Or did he have to create them from scratch?
No, it was all from scratch. Yeah.
Was he educated?
No.
What
Yeah.
were his core values?
My dad tells me stories when they were in Mexico that, and he had like 10 siblings. They were very, very
Oh,
poor.
wow.
They moved to Canada because they had German family that had migrated up to Canada. And who would have thought that there were all these Hispanics that were in Canada as well? And that's kind of what started the movement, if you will, and united people. And it was very great to be a part of because although I'm
Holy cow.
Mexican and German, there were so many different Latin American countries of people, and it was just a great community to be a part of.
And now, if so, 85 they started. When you're born, it's 7 years in. You're speaking at 12. That's almost 20 years in. So it's a pretty established culture at that point.
Yeah,
Organization, every art right has a life cycle. It's pretty
yeah,
big. Now, do you remember the first time that you were you were on stage speaking or sharing your testimony?
yeah.
Or
I was so nervous. um, I also play the piano, so I would look at the
wow,
keyboard as kind of my distraction to not be in front of people. And
wow,
when I would speak, like I would have to play the piano, and then that's when I would speak. And similar to how you find a quote before
yeah,
your
yeah.
your episode, like I had to find something that was relevant in that time to speak to the people, to encourage them, to uplift them. And, at the age of 12, having to prepare and do that stuff was interesting.
Yeah, well, I want our audience to pinpoint that because that is an invaluable, that's a priceless experience
Yeah.
to be put in that position. I mean, I would love your feedback. Like I would think to it's like training, it's like experience, it's a test
Yeah.
that is invaluable, and it's I could sense that spirit on you when we met, and I was trying to figure out where it came from, and that's pretty unbelievable. I am curious. You mentioned like the servant. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I thought you said servant leadership
Yeah.
or with the people that you said your uncle would go to the prisons, go to the homeless. Um, how would you analogize that to business? Some of the business fundamentals, what you've seen work in the big these are you've been big companies.
Yeah.
Where does that translate? So for our audience, right, the business leaders
Yeah.
that are listening, they're thinking, well, I'm not going to go to a prison or I'm not going to go to the, but what would be the analogy of like their prisons or their homeless shelters if they're in leadership in companies, or how do you see that crossing over the lessons?
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway with that is, people, your people in your organization are the most important thing. Your profitability doesn't matter. Because if your people are not happy, if your people are not well, if your people are struggling with whatever it is that's going on in their personal life, they will not be able to support and be 100% there for your organization. So, to any business leader, I encourage you to be with your people, have lunch with them, have one on ones with them, spend time with them, because that is the most invaluable thing that you could do. And, Jesus did that. He spent so much time with his
Amen.
disciples. He spent so much time with all of these random groups of people. And I think that's what made his ministry stronger than a lot of other leaders in that time.
Wow. Amazing. Um, so yeah, the the spirit of the account executive, what do you how do you see that relationship where responsibility falls, or um how to be a partner to an independent or you're a broker, right?
Yeah.
How do you see that relationship? After all the,
So
yeah. How do you, I want to really get to the meat and potatoes of like what
yeah,
makes a successful, because I've been thinking about this for a couple of years. I've been asking a lot of people on the show that can,
yeah.
what makes a successful account executive?
So
That's a
that's
big
a
conversation. Maybe
yeah,
over a couple episodes you could break down, but I do want to open that Pandora's box today a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. So I think before I explain that, it's important to know that I was at UWM for 10 years, and the
Long
relationships that
time.
I built throughout those 10 years were so impactful. And I think that's what really has made me an amazing account executive, if you will, even though my title has changed so many different times. At the end of the day, I was an amazing account executive because of those relationships, because I cared. When there was a problem that arose, I didn't care. And so many things can go sideways throughout a loan. It could be a third party issue, like an appraisal that comes in undervalued and it has nothing to do with your organization, but because you're affiliated, you have to own that and say, okay, here are our solutions. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to continue to move forward. And I think what makes us a successful account executive is when issues arise, don't point fingers at who's to blame, even if the originator's to blame, even if the broker owner's to blame, even if the client's to blame because they drag their feet getting documents over to the team. Own that and say,
Mm.
okay, I don't know how this went sideways. This is how it should have happened. This is how you could avoid it in the future. But I'm going to take ownership of this and I'm going to make sure that this loan closes because it's your reputation that's on the line. At the end of the day, in third party origination, they're not going to remember EPM. They're going to remember that broker owner and that interaction. So you have to take that ownership and treat that originator or broker owner like their family and own that issue or that escalation.
I love that. How would you say that some frequent blind spots or blind spot behaviors that account executives may act out that undermine that relationship, like the little things that could stack
Yeah.
up? Because my
The
guess
big
would be that with this successful, 10 billion and 300 million, the culture figured out how to mitigate the little mistakes and how to really
yeah.
get the most out of the genius of the people. So that's why I'm asking that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Previous to my career path, I made my own title. So 14 months into being an accountant executive, I got pulled into a room and they told me, we've been watching you for the last 2 weeks. We want you to create your own role. And I just said yes, just to be able to work with
Wow.
Matt Ishbia, the president CEO, and some of the VPs that were very high up.
Yeah.
And saying yes to that, I had no idea the opportunity that I would have. So uh, all issues escalations for the top 200 brokerages in the nation came up to us. And I was the only guy that had to solve it with all of our departments. Now they have technology that does what I did, and they have a concierge team that kind of more white glove helps with all of those things. But when we didn't have that, I was the one that was problem solving and figuring everything out from
Was that the
when a
national
loan went.
account specialist?
Yeah, yeah, I
Go ahead,
created that
sorry.
title.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like I like that title.
Yeah, I didn't know what to call myself.
Well, the specialist is like a fixer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have a brain issue. You need a neurosurgeon. You don't just need a
Mhm.
general doctor.
Yeah.
So
And that's how I built so many great relationships is through being in the thick of it with
oh,
all
that
of
makes
these
sense.
clients early on. So a lot of relationships that I have, I wasn't their personal account executive, but because I would help them with whatever issue they had, they know that they can rely on me, and that brand is something that I built up
Oh,
throughout the
so
years.
I want to expand on that because I think everybody could relate to this. So you were getting in that position, you're getting all the problems.
Yeah.
So it's that relationship relating to you, this title,
Hmm.
they don't know what that means either.
Yeah.
So firstly, how do you view problems? Because my guess would be if you viewed them in a certain way, it would not very successful. So like how did you view that, all that? because I'm thinking every day I'm getting
Yeah.
issues. So yeah,
I
if you could.
I love problems. Problems are an opportunity. If things are quiet, it's like, what's going on? Things should be breaking. They should be falling apart. That's a sign that you're getting a lot of loans in, that people are figuring out the process, and that's where you can zone in on your opportunity.
Hmm.
They're the ones that are using your system every single day, and if they can highlight different pain points throughout the life of the loan that you might not see because you're not the originator that's in there utilizing the system every day, that's worth more than anything. So I would view it as an opportunity. And then if one person's telling me that there's a problem, chances are there's 10 more people that are experiencing that same thing. So that would
Whoa.
give us the list of things to actually work on from a technology and process standpoint.
And so some common things that arise, that's so much data analysis in there. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Like were the yeah, what were the main how are there a few dozen occurring things or a dozen or like what were the main things that usually
So much. The biggest one was communication. Throughout the life of the loan, people didn't feel like they would get emails responded to. And, underwriters or processors or different people would go silent throughout the process, especially when there's not good news to give. So that
all over here?
communication was so important. And we developed a system called client requests where you could literally put it in and then it starts a shot clock and the whole company sees how much time it's in that person's name and how long it takes to solve it. So it holds everyone super accountable to solving problems fast.
Why does communication get broken down?
Um, Communication is usually something that honestly I think all humans struggle with because we assume that people should know how to do business with us. We assume that they should know the process because we work for this company and we have that training and we have that experience, but we don't recognize that all of these originators aren't employees of this organization, so they have no idea who taught them. So don't assume, and you own and communicate everything effectively. But that's why I think communication is a big opportunity.
And yeah, I was also gonna like you are have you always been a preparer? Do you consider yourself someone that prepares?
Yes, within limits. Like I don't like to be so prepared to where I can't be myself.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
find
yeah.
it very important to be true to who I am, but at the same time, I like to also prepare and know who I'm speaking with. Like for example, you. Of course, I did research on you. I started listening to your
Oh, thanks.
podcasts,
Oh,
because
thanks.
I wanted to get a feeling for your heart and what this conversation was going to be. And same thing in business, it's important to do research on your audience. Like if you're trying to get business from an account, find out where they're at, find out where they do their loans, so that way you can have more of an opportunity instead of trying to dig around and figure that out.
Yeah, I respect that. I think preparation, even we were chatting a little bit before this on text, like that Abraham Lincoln, if I have 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend 4 hours sharpening my blade.
Yeah, I was honored that you texted me that because that was
Yeah,
the same quote that you used um, for your
one of my
TED
favorites.
podcast, and I was just like, wow, that's what a coincidence.
Uh, well, I found that preparation, I love your thoughts on this. Preparation lowers it helps me be present
Exactly.
because I want to explore and be creative. Like I can ask better questions and kind of, just kind of flow because I've be prepared. There's so many interesting things that come about. Like, I'm curious of the culture, for example, of the even the insure with the actual insurance company that you're with at that time. Like, what was that culture like? And were there of the company, how did their structure work?
So
How involved were they with that satellite location? There's always something to learn. And if I didn't, and invest the time, then I can't ask. I wouldn't even know
yeah,
about it.
yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with the insurance industry, it's very similar to mortgage brokers. Like you can plug in and you set up shop and you control your own culture of that organization. So even though, like your big parent company has its own culture, anytime that you have individual branches, they all have a different culture and a different leadership and a different vibe. And that's one of the things that makes UWM very unique. They were one thing that's important to know, both Rocket and UWM were brokers that became very large correspondents that then became very large lenders. And they recognized very early on that it was very hard to protect the culture by having a bunch of branches. And so both of them kind of made a more centralized move. So UWM has no branches at all. All 10,000 employees are in one office in Pontiac, Michigan. And then similar thing with Rocket, although they do have a branch in Arizona and in Cleveland, they all have different
Hmm.
cultures within those offices as well.
The what so training, in your estimation, what what type of training does it take to something like I have a couple questions. I'll get to the training in a second, actually. First is are there certain personalities that you would say align more so with the account executive than not? Like so the spirit, because you had mentioned your different titles, but like the spirit of the account executive, I would argue is a fundamental a fundamental principle to the whole model,
Yeah.
right? Because so I'm curious about the type of personality you think that works best with that role. Is there one, or is it less personality and something else? Training, education,
Y- You know,
rituals.
it's very interesting because people are different, no one person is the same like another person, and they all have different ways of doing things. But if I had to pinpoint the strongest attributes, I would say it has to be someone that's outgoing. You can't be scared of having conversations. You have to go out and ask for business. You'd be surprised how many account executives are scared to ask for loans. And it's like, why? They want your phone call. They want to do business with you. They know why you're calling. Ask for that loan. You have a right to ask for that loan because you have something of value to provide to them. You are like I that's something that I struggle with even our EPM family, because I'm like, they want to work with you. Like you pick up the phone and call them. So many broker owners give me that feedback and they're like, I want the AEs to call me. But at the same time, EPM, although they are absolutely amazing, they have 61 AEs and over 30,000 partners. That's 2,000 bodies roughly per person that they have to touch. That it's like, how do you touch all of that? Luckily, Jenna is doing some amazing stuff and she's going to help us dominate more. And that's going to be what our focus is on in sales, because that's the number one feedback that we get. People want to connect with us.
Wow. Um, well, that because what? How about the other end? What builds trust between executives and the organization behind them, and what undermines trust between executives and the organ? The reason I bring that up is I'm thinking I'm going to be if I believe in culture, I'm more likely to call you. Well, like if I believe in
Yeah.
what it is that I'm representing, I'm more likely to. Right. So, what would you from like for example? I'll use a very specific case study. Right. How did the United Wholesale Mortgage empower? I like the name. Wasn't uh, no pun intended, but empower the the soldiers to go into battle. Like, all
Yeah.
right, now my mind's I'm thinking like Normandy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get on the beach. There's a couple reasons I'm gonna go on that beach in Normandy. One, I
Yeah.
want to know my gun works.
Yep.
Two, I want a gun. Three, I want a helmet.
Yeah.
Four, I've been like training with my brothers and sisters for like who knows how long. Five, I
Yeah.
don't want to I'm not worried about my brother and sister. I'm worried about my brother or well, there weren't women, I guess, at that time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We
but
get
like
the gist.
that's a scary proposition to storm the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah.
There are certain things the United States government did to make sure that, and continues to, the troops are ready for battle. So like yeah, if we were to reverse engineer some of the things that clearly have worked to prepare the soldiers for battle, so they have confidence to shoot that gun. I love that's like the, I mean, uh, anyway, curious as an
Yeah,
observer and
it's
as in that milieu.
absolutely. I think the biggest thing is strategy, being very transparent on how we plan on going. So one of the things that made UWM very unique, I joined when we were celebrating 10 billion, and then shortly after that, Matt created a goal of 20 billion, and we were going to double production.
Wow.
But he was very clear on how we were going to do that, and he has 3-year goals. Most successful people do 3 or 5 year goals because one year, might get derailed by COVID or something might happen that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
takes your plan out of cycle. That a 3 to 5 year window gives you plenty of time to be able to execute and lead your teams. But the vision was very clear of where we were headed. And then when the vision was clear, you were able to dissect that into every single department. So every department had their goals that were aligned to that bigger vision of doubling production. And that's how you got the buy-in from everybody, and everyone was contributing, and they were refining the process. We were all working together for that. And then also we were very clear on communication plays. And we're like, this is what's expected of you as an account executive, that you have a perfect day. You have to make
Oh,
X phone calls.
oh, that's good. Yeah, can we unpack the perfect day?
Yeah, you have to make X amount of 2-minute phone calls, meaning that's how they would measure a successful business conversation, by talking on the phone with an originator for 2 minutes. So you had to get at least 10 of those in a day. You had to have at least 30 dials in a day. So all of these metrics were things that aligned sales, but then underwriting had its own metrics that were different based on underwriting touches, making sure that they had a good loan quality. And same thing in closing too. So every department had different metrics, but all of those metrics led up to that main goal of doubling production.
Let's say, for example, yeah, it's training camp. It's before Normandy beaches. I don't I yeah, I'm tired today. I don't want to do the training. Yeah, I'll do two touches, three dials, you know. I think I know what the US military would do, but how did that go? Like, what advice would you have for us on consequences of a lack of responsibility around the metrics, around the key
Yeah.
performance indicators? How was that approached?
Um, so two things. One, I think it's okay
Like,
for a
you ever see
person
the
to
Wolf
have,
of Wall Street with the new issue day with the fishbowl?
no, I haven't.
That's it's good. That's, I think, because that's, you're like you're a good guy from Canada. You're Canadian. Like, that's a bad movie. Like, it's a bad culture movie. You
Yeah.
never see the Wolf of Wall Street?
Oh, actually I have. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry, I'm talking fast. Like, remember the fishbowl? That was I was giving you. I'm saying,
Yes.
oh, he's from Canada. He hasn't seen the Wolf of Wall Street. Like the
Yep.
fishbowl scene.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Now, that art from a cultural perspective, somebody was doing something that wasn't in lockstep with the story,
Yep.
with the behaviors that were expected of the soldiers. So the guy gets on the desk and eats the fish and all that.
Yeah.
That's a very extreme,
So extreme.
but
Yeah,
it's a
don't do that.
metaphor. But yeah, from a learning case study, it's like a metaphor for consequences.
Yeah.
Or so I'm curious, like, what advice you have around when people aren't, they're not training, they're not making the calls, they're not doing the dials. How was that approached?
Um, it really depended on the leader, because they had a tree of organizations. So usually you'd have a team leader, and then the team leader reported to an AVP, and the AVP reported to a VP. So you would kind of, everything was tracked, and you would see those metrics. And if a person had a bad day, that normally is always hitting the metrics. It's like, okay, you had a bad day, or maybe you had a doctor's appointment that you left early, and you couldn't. So it's very important to stay human, and stay in touch with your people.
Not eat
When
people's fish.
exactly, yes. But at the same time, hold people accountable to it, and go back to their goals. Like, why did you join this organization? By making these phone calls, you're going to get more loans, you're going to double your income. This is something that you want. So, how can I coach you as a leader as to why these are so important and why you should hit these metrics for you, not for me?
So you saw a lot of that, like emotional, was there emotional intelligence training?
Yeah, very, very, very focused on emotional intelligence and how we communicate and how we effectively lead. All of the leadership at UWM went through so much training. We had a whole leadership team that was just focused on helping people become better leaders and coaching them on how to handle situations, because that's the thing that we recognize, like, you promote people, but then no one really taught them how to lead. So then we had to break that down.
No, well, that's a great that's a great point. Um, what's your biggest lesson from that 10 years?
Oh, there's so many. Matt Ishbia, the president and CEO of UWM, getting to work closely with him. Um, I can't even put a price tag on the things that that man has taught me. Um, he would get into the office at 4:30 in the morning, every single morning,
Whoa.
and every 15 minutes was pre-calculated out. That's his meetings are only 15 minutes, and 5 minutes before the meeting ends, his assistant knocks on the door and gives him a 5 minute warning. And if he likes the conversation, he'll give you the full 5 minutes. If he is pressed for time, he'll try to get those 5 minutes and squeeze out whatever he can to make it to the next meeting. So, um, the biggest lesson that I think, now speaking out loud, you don't get time back. Time is the only thing that, regardless if you're a billionaire or you're just a regular person like me, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. That, how do you effectively execute your time? And a lot of my family members and even people in my life, that's one thing that they recognize about me. I try to squeeze as much as I can from my 24 hours so that I can maximize and impact more people.
Well, I want to, actual acknowledge you there. I don't think just any guy, maybe relative, it's all relative, right? But that's really impressive. The 15 minute five thing is super interesting to me.
Yeah,
Because in a sense, let's say that I'm someone that's loyal, I really care. Just because I really care doesn't mean I'm as effective or competent as I need to be at any
yeah,
given time. So like, I just want your thoughts on this. If it's, let's say that, yeah, I'm having a meeting and I get 10 minutes and not 15, that's an implicit way to tell me, hey, maybe come more prepared next time, or get, what, how can I do better next? If I actually trust the person and respect the person and care about
yeah,
them, that's a little neg, like, do better. That's something that stands out, the 15 or the
yeah,
10 kind of thing. It's an
exactly.
interest that's deeply psychological.
Yeah,
Like if there's real
and
trust
we would
there, I
always
might,
chat about it within leaders. We'd be like, okay, all right, he cut the meeting short. Like, next time we have to go in and we have to be a little bit more prepared or refine this, or
dude,
maybe he didn't like
yeah,
that.
oh, that's so psychological. I mean, but very impressive. Wow, that's such a powerful,
And
that's a
and
powerful
I
one.
and I think it's important to note that although it is psychological, he was just trying to manage his time. He's growing so quickly that, and like, I know him personally, so his time, he wants to do everything. He wants to be able to, like, effectively lead. But how, when you grow an organization from 30 people to 10,000, your time diminishes very quickly. And then he recently bought the Phoenix Suns. So then he's also running that, how do you dictate your time? And that's a way that he could control that to make sure that he was effectively serving all of his leaders and everyone.
Yeah, very powerful. And I definitely, uh, uh, I'm acknowledging that in a deeply, philosophical way. So I'm definitely not negging I just want to, I don't see
No,
that as
yeah.
like a negative. It's more of, well, fascinating how that could, inspire creativity and, just
Push
responsibility. It's
people
like
to
a
do
feedback.
better.
Yeah. It's interesting. Why so? Oh yeah, it's a couple things. Was there a thesis behind the time, like so early to the office?
Yeah. So if you get there before your direct reports get there, you could his philosophy was you could arguably work a whole day before all the problems arise. So when everyone else gets into the office, that's usually when they start firing off emails, start firing off calls. So if he can get through the nuts and bolts of his day, then he can effectively lead his people and be there for the issues that may arise throughout the day. Because that's one of the
Oh,
things
that's a
that
good one.
like being a CEO, I don't think we give CEOs enough credit. Like there isn't a roadmap and every day is different. That new problems arise. And sometimes we forget, even within organizations, that they're human. And it's very important to acknowledge that, in my opinion. And I would always put myself back in his shoes.
Very powerful. Well, so let me so the in a sense, getting there before the day, I'm in a position of proactivity on
Yep.
maybe higher order things that could easily either know not known or they can be well, they're implicitly taken for granted because no one's in that
Yeah.
seat but that person. And
Yeah.
then when the normal working hours are the case, that's the opportunity as your uncle to be with the homeless, to be in the prisons, to be with the people.
Yep.
So you're showing the way, EPM culture, show the way. So you could show the way. And that's fascinating. Yeah, like what about work ethic, right? What's the work ethic that you saw? Right, 10 years, 30x. You're saying 10 people to, I'm sorry, 30 people to 10,000 human beings a part of this culture. What type
Yeah.
of work ethic? And I want to get, how do you define, how would you just define work ethic? What is that?
It I can't even put to words how effective all of his leaders worked and the level that we all worked. Like it, but I think it's very important to note we all worked very hard, but it was that goal that pushed us to work hard. We all knew that we were trying to double in production. We all knew we had a goal of becoming the number one overall lender. And so we were all aligned within that mission and we all wanted to serve. So it didn't feel like we were punching a clock. It felt like we were building something together. And the amount of work ethic that everyone had around, like I worked hard because the people around me worked hard. It's the same thing like going to a Lifetime versus a Planet Fitness. I get a better workout at Lifetime because everyone is training seriously versus a Planet Fitness where they're eating pizza on the treadmill. Like I'm not getting the best workout.
No, so it compounded because the goal was clear. I'm trying to think what I learned. This is like a master class. This is great.
Yeah.
The goal was clear. It was high action. There was a clear key performance indicators as a consequence of each department being clear on the how
Yeah.
of how it fit into the overall how, which was represented in the vision.
Yep.
How much talking about like, but how much talking about the vision occurred, like ritual, right? So for many years ago, I had team meetings every day.
Yeah.
Right? I look at this show as my team meeting
Yeah.
because
I
there are
love it.
thousands and thousands of people that listen to the show.
Yeah.
And we're having a team meeting right now. They're learning
Yeah.
about culture. This is a
Absolutely.
case study. So,
Yeah.
and every day a new episode goes out.
Yeah.
So it's like, what type of ritual? I don't want to because I'm thinking every Sunday, right? You guys for 30 something years that I'm sure you
Yeah.
meet. It's like if you don't
Yeah.
meet on Sunday, oh, the pastor's not here. Oh,
Yeah.
well, then what the heck's going on? So, what
Yeah.
about the rituals? What were the rituals? How often? What did that look like?
Absolutely. So first off, every Wednesday, all of sales met. 9 a.m. That was our sales call. That's where we would cover everything. And that was a ritual. Like back in the day before we grew, if you were 1 minute late, he'd say, "Don't come in. Do not come in at all." Like he would even fire people on the spot sometimes if they showed up late.
Wow.
Not saying to go to that extreme. Like now, granted, we all evolved, because we can't get millennials out of bed sometimes, but now they're more flexible with those type of things. But that was very important. And then also every the meetings were very strategic. So every single Tuesday, he had a sales and marketing meeting. So sales and marketing would align on what new products they're launching, what different things they were rolling out. It was very strategic with that. Monday, he would have all of his C-level leaders would meet. So everyone would get aligned and they would get 3 minutes to talk about every single topic within within their department so that everyone could come up to speed, and then they had action items from that. And then going down to the team member level, you had every leader had a meeting and then they would huddle everybody up at 10:15. So the same message was going out to the entire organization, regardless of what your leader was, the same talking points, so that way you could get your whole army rowing in one direction, and they knew what to talk about, they knew what to expect, they were prepared, um, and everyone did that. Sales was the one that started it, but because that was so successful, then every department ended up doing that as well.
What's the energy like when that's all running, rolling?
It's super high. Like you're excited. Like you get your whole team to huddle up and then talk about, the goals, what we're going, what the talking points are, what new update did we launch, what success stories do we have, and then you're fired up to go back to the phone and then go tell everyone what you just learned. So it was amazing. I loved it. Every meeting I was reinvigorated because you got to meet with your people. And then that empowered you to hit the phones harder.
Yeah, and I want to say, in the absence of that commitment, aren't we in a sense just leaving dead space for the best people to figure it out on their own and then just preparing them? When I say organizationally, in the absence of such a ritual like that, the organization is just leaving it up to people to figure it out on their own. And if that's the case, there's less. I'll give you an example. Like there's less. Um, how do I say it? So, do you consider yourself an American?
Yes,
You why?
I can consider myself an American because this is my country, because I love it here. The values, I'm aligned with everything that we do as a country. I might not always agree with the policymakers or the people that are the spearhead, but out of every single country, I believe in what America is building, and I support this country 100%.
And do you have a Mexican and German heritage?
Yep.
Are you proud to be Mexican?
Absolutely. I'm super proud of the lineage and the heritage. I believe that, the German side gives my analytical brain,
Yeah.
that I like to put puzzle pieces together, solve problems. The engineering background, because Germans invented the first car, and we have
Genius
those
culture.
deep
Yeah.
roots. Yeah. But then I have the Mexican side that gives the hard work, the humility, and the grind that together it's a workforce. And then I don't, although I was born in Canada, I don't really resonate too much with Canada, because it's Canada.
No, it's fascinating, but like I'll share myself like uh I have feel a very deep uh feeling to my Irish roots because my biological mother, Linda Duran, sh who I have a very deep connection to because of my childhood, she's Irish, and
Yeah.
like Ireland has been in my head. That's where I want to go. They have this fantasy of being there someday and finding the roots and like um of course I consider myself an American because well, implicitly it's the country that I've been born into, but as I read books and studied the founding and the amazing opportunity that we have, I've bought more and more into the culture. I guess just the reason I bring that up is because um it's it's like whether it's the culture, if it's easy. The culture can easily it's almost like alienate itself from us. So like, I guess we could be proud, you could be proud of your roots and be proud of the country that you're in if
Yeah.
you align with the story and you believe in its, if we believe in, even if we're not from here, like
Yeah.
if you believe in it, if you believe in the story, you believe in in what it stands for, you can be proud of two things at the same time. And that's like,
Absolutely.
the reason I bring that up is we each have our own personal goals, and then the company has its goal.
Yeah.
I have my personal mission for where I want to be in my life. My company that I work for and with has its vision, its mission,
Yeah.
its and we when they align, it's a beautiful transforming experience.
Yeah.
Just like, and that's why, you know, I was anyway. So sorry if that
No,
was too
yeah.
personal. Sorry that was too
No,
personal, but
going back
I
into
took a
it,
risk
like
on that. But
the company is similar to our country, right? And then your personal goals, that's you. Like we are all contributors to this economy. Like I want to help
amen.
America grow. That's the main reason why I'm a leader within a lender, because I can impact more people, I can impact more families. If I help EPM double in production, that's more people that obtained a home that get the American gift.
Yes.
So that goes back to everything. So my personal goals are aligned with our country goals. So it's very similar in that. And I think it's a beautiful thing when your country goals, your company goals, and your personal goals all align.
On that note, what is in power and why are you so excited about it?
Yeah. So Empower is a conventional space. So EPM has always been a great lender at doing some of the more difficult loans that nobody in the industry wants to do. Like nobody is doing them because it's not profitable for them to focus on that. So
Mm.
every lender out there, it's an assembly line. And it doesn't make sense for them to do renovation loans. It doesn't make sense for them to do manual underwrites. It doesn't make sense for them to do DPAs. But yet EPM has always been the lender that does those things because it's the right thing to do. Now we have Empower. So we don't have to sacrifice our speed anymore. We're still going to do those amazing products, but now we're going to have a refined process so that we can also tap into that conventional business as well. So I'm very excited because we don't have to change who we are. We're just getting better.
I just, I don't know if the, nobody wants to go to prisons or homeless shelters.
Yeah.
That being said, when you learn in the prisons and homeless shelters, and then you help um, the wealthy third gens whose kid is on heroin, now you're
Yeah.
just a rich priest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little, a play on the. Now, it's a pretty profound thought, actually. Hey, what are the brokers looking for? What are their expectations for a lending partner in 2025?
It that's an interesting and very loaded question because no one knows what this industry is going to look like over the next 5 years. But if I had to pinpoint on feedback that I've gotten throughout the years, they want someone that's loyal and consistent, that doesn't change their character. So as organizations grow, one of the things that usually is compromised is their character because profitability becomes more important than the relationships that you've built. And I think that's one thing that's very important to EPM and Eddie, the CEO, is making sure that the relationships are intact and that we're there for the long haul, that we're not just building this to be profitable for 1 year,
Why?
because we're in this for the next 20, for the next 30, for the next 50. Because the lending community needs a good partner. That's something that a lot of, I think it's very important to note that every other lender, with the exception of UWM and EPM, is wholesale, is retail. So retail has higher margins, arguably 200 to 400 basis points higher in margin. So their main agenda is how do we get these guys to go into our retail channel because we'll be more profitable. The fact that EPM is 100% wholesale and they have no retail channel is one of the main reasons why I came on board, because I believe in our broker community and in those partnerships. I believe that brokers make a bigger impact, not only on local economies, but they can also coach up and educate people in a way that a call center or a big mega lender might not have the time to do.
In the sense that a broker is building a relationship with the borrower. That's the broker's business. It's their skin in the game.
Mhm.
If I care about, if I'm a broker and I'm customer focused, I'm inherently more, I'm customer focused because my customers are my business. I want to care. The culture
Yeah.
is a consequence of customer service. What do you think about that?
What do you mean by a
Oh,
consequence of customer
actually,
service?
I'll answer this way. Like, uh, who did UWM see its customers were?
Our customers were our brokers,
Why?
like because the brokers were the ones that were directly doing business with us. So their feedback was what we needed to hone in on.
So so the thought process was, how do we make their businesses more successful?
Yeah, how do we grow the broker channel? How do we grow how do we streamline the process and make it so easy to do business with us so that the brokers would want to send us the majority of their loans?
Why is the process and why is the process and the ease important? How does that make them more successful, the brokers?
Great question. So part of what I would do in my role, I would fly out to broker shops and I would pull apart their process and show them how to streamline things and make things more efficient, and in tune integrate with our process. The reason why that's so important
Wow.
is
Yeah.
because there are so many deficiencies that can happen when you're starting a mortgage company. No one teaches you how to start a mortgage broker shop. And you have to piece together different technologies. So no one broker shop is like the other. They might have a same business model, but they all use different technology. They all have a different process flow and different expectations and communicate differently. So by learning that, you would refine their process and show them how to double up. And then we would double up as a result of
Okay.
that.
Gee, this is amazing. That so this is what I meant by culture is a consequence. Think of it like a result of customer service. If you remember what
Yeah.
Dr. Peterson was talking about in his keynote,
Yeah.
he was talking about sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like when you went out there, that's an act of humility
Yeah.
because there's an entitlement there's an inherent entitlement in the fact that this large megalith has plenty of people that would send, be in a position to send it capital,
Yeah.
right? It could easily say, you know, look at us, send it. No,
Yeah.
no. Well, let's send an emissary. Let's send an emissary. Let's send, Mother Teresa. She went.
Yeah.
I love Mother Teresa. I mean,
Yeah.
she is
Absolutely.
more powerful than anybody,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Go to the customer. So that's Peterson was talking about his keynote about sacrifice, uh, self-sacrifice. Like
Yeah.
remember in the beginning, I wrote this down. It was like making it about the other person.
Yeah.
There's a humility in that.
Yeah, it's
So
funny that
yeah,
you
go ahead.
mentioned that, because for my nonprofit home, the Hispanic Organization of Mortgage Experts, our
Wow,
main tagline is help yourself by helping others.
I love that.
So when you help other people, you will naturally help yourself. That business is going to come back when you're able to go and make an impact and help people.
So that the the culture, meaning for the all of the things that are represent culture, that's such a big word. It
Mhm.
means everything yet enough. It's like, what is it? It's you know it when you see it, and you know it when it's not there.
Yeah,
But for simplicity's sake, that it comes as a result of the acting out. of
Yeah.
the story, the acting out of the values. And so I just want to acknowledge if you were going at in that position, it's going out and it's an act of humility, leaning into this customer. Okay, we consider our customers these small businesses that are interacting with the borrowers. So we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure they're the best version of themselves,
Yeah.
integrating the systems, that's what I'm gathering. That was very heavy on the back end so that it
Yeah.
could support them at the most seamless. And then it used human capital, like talent like yourself, to meet them where they were, to ask the questions that were necessary to solve the problems as they arose. Am I starting to
Absolutely.
understand?
Yeah.
Now
And
I
so
have an
that culture
addition.
led,
Okay.
going back to your point, that culture led and bled into those relationships. So we felt it as an organization. And then we all went and took a little bit of that culture, if you would, and spread the gospel into all of these broker shops. And then that's what encouraged growth within those broker shops.
Because I'm of the that so this is what I want to ask about the people. So like the people saw that behavior and they're inspired because they see that it's real.
Yeah.
It's actually happening.
Yeah.
But this is where I want to learn from you on the so now we have so if the customer is the small business that's interfacing with, when I say all of us, I mean the American people, right? Home, we're talking about home ownership,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about what the gift, the gift and what that is and our beliefs in that. I believe in it.
Yeah.
So that's the customer. But now the question becomes, we have other roles in the organization, one being that account executive. So if they're not the customer, well, what are they? Right? How do we
So I think account
attract,
executives,
align? Yeah, can you elucidate or elaborate on that?
absolutely. I think account executives are the ambassador of that culture. They are the ones that go out into the field. They are the representation of us as an organization. So earlier in the episode, when I said you have to handle your things with excellence, that's what I'm alluding to is you have to be that brand for the organization and go out and represent us the best way possible. When things go sideways, when things go good, when things go bad, keeping that brand and being that ambassador, if you will.
How often do those ambassadors gather, train? So like I'm inspired. I have this book right here. I one of my favorite freaking war books ever. It's just like on the bookshelf. It's on the windowsill. It's
Yeah.
Alexander. It's on Alexander and his father, King Philip II, by Theodore Errolt Dodge. But it breaks down the weapons. It breaks down the 40,000 men army that Alexander inherited from his father, King Philip II.
Yeah.
King Philip II was just he wasn't much. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but he unified, he was a lot. He was a genius for sure. He
Yeah.
unified the tribes. He unified these differing, disparate tribes,
Yeah.
gave them technology, the Sarisa spear, which was almost twice as long as the traditional phalanx spear, and trained them, the system, the process,
Yeah.
it was a pretty brilliant, it's a brilliant case study. It's freaking
Yeah.
awesome. So when I think of like those soldiers, right, going to Normandy, what education, what training, what philosophy leads to ambassadors being proud patriots, proud stewards of the capital, stewards of the infrastructure. It's like, so I'm proud to call this small business because I'm here to help you grow your business, not
Yeah.
I'm here to take something from you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yeah.
the code that I would the nut, you know, if there's 61 ambassadors, you know, Jesus did more with 11. One of them betrayed him.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because from hands-on experience, what were the rituals? Um,
So training was
What's the
everything.
training? Yeah.
Like when UWM used to require 3 years of mortgage experience before they hired anybody. They got rid of that requirement and they started to create their own account executive. And part of that was a 2 year training course. So you were like the first 30 days was intensive training, and then you had to pass a test to make sure you had the general understanding and knowledge. Then after that, for the next 2 years, every day at 2 p.m., you have a training for 24 months and under. So we are constantly educating you on everything that might arise early up in your career to empower you to go be the best ambassador you can be.
Oh my. So wait, 30 days first. There's a test,
Yep.
and then every day at 2 p.m. training for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's not
Yeah.
then, it's not I'm not surprised. It
Yeah.
sounds, it's like right
Yeah.
here.
Exactly.
That no, but that's amazing. That like, how could it be any other way?
Exactly. Yeah. It was and it's great when you get to see someone's career take off too, especially never having experience and then suddenly they understand the mortgage knowledge and are able to go create great relationships and then break records. Like that's what I loved seeing. And I grew. I was fortunate enough to grow a specialty team within UWM called Expert Ave. 80% of the production was from that team, and it was very similar to our army. We picked two very highly skilled account executives and we gave them some of the top accounts, and then we trained them how to go out and get more business. So arguably all of those accounts would send us 80 to 90% of their business because we were very hyper focused on their feedback, what issues arose, and we were ingrained in their process. And those were the accounts that I would go out and visit,
Mm,
learn from, but then also make our system better and make it easier for them.
man. Hey, why is homeownership important in your estimation for the listeners that they're excited for the ride. They don't even know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
but they think it's an interesting conversation. There's tidbits for leadership and
And
culture.
business.
For it definitely flows the business, right? So, and if they listen to the show, they're used to this. So, but
Yeah.
so for that piece, why do you think? Well, yeah, I'm assuming. So you said not to assume though. Do you think homeownership is valuable or not valuable for the consumer? I feel stupid asking, but you said not to
No,
assume. I don't want to
no, you're
assume.
good. You're good. You're good. Thank you for listening. Yeah, it's so important. That's the main reason why, I picked this career. That's why I love this industry. I find home ownership so important, um, because a home, it's just the outside shell, but what really happens within a family is inside of that home.
Hmm.
And for a lot of you know, Americans, if they don't have a home, then they're in that scarcity mindset and they can't be creative. They can't flow because they have to be worried about, am I going to make the rent on time, or can I do all of this stuff? Homeownership is so important because it's an appreciating asset, meaning it gains value. So even though you're paying on this mortgage, the way that the amortization schedule works, you pay less and less towards interest as the years go on, and then you gain more and more equity. And I find that so important because if someone gets cancer, if your kid needs to go to college, then you can take out of that equity to be able to go and purchase whatever you need. So it's the American gift, no pun
Mm,
intended,
yeah.
because it allows you to live life and do the things that you need to do instead of constantly having to just pay rent every single day, or every single month, if you will.
What would you say? What would you say of the most successful brokers that you came in contact with? How did they view their role in society?
Same. They viewed themselves as a servant. So they were there focused on making sure that they could try to get every deal to work. And if they couldn't get the deal to work, they were responsible for a roadmap of you might not qualify today because your debt to income is too high, but here's a roadmap to pay down your credit cards to be able to then obtain a home in 6 months. That's what I love so much about the brokers that I partnered up with, is that they really cared about their client, and they would put them on roadmaps, and that's what would make them more successful. It seems like there's a theme with this podcast, about serving and then it coming back to you, you know?
It's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never know where it's going to go. I have even more. I hope you're welcome back anytime. I have more questions. I do want to ask about the Hispanic Organization of Mortgage Experts. What was the inspiration to start? That was in January of 2024, correct?
Yeah. Yep. So, great question. To be honest, I didn't want to do it. Starting something from scratch, as you know, is very, very difficult. Um, but there was such a need. So many Hispanic loan officers would come up to me and they would say, "Hey, Rogelio, like we need more representation. We need more this. We need more that." And I was the very first Spanish speaker at UWM, and I would translate
Wow.
loan documents. I would translate for VVOE, everything, and that was on top of everything else that I did. I did it to help out and serve. Um, and I was responsible for Spanish marketing. After 8 years, they finally did Spanish marketing. And then I was also responsible for them partnering up with the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals as well. Um, but I just still felt like there was more that I needed to do. And so, in meeting with some of the Hispanic loan officers, that's when I found this movement called Home. It's, even though it's a nonprofit, it's more of a movement that's geared to empower Hispanic loan officers. And I'm very glad and fortunate that I did, because diving in through some of the data, only 1% of all loan officers are Hispanic, when that is the
Wow.
largest home buying population by default. And my favorite statistic is 1
Wow.
million Hispanic Americans will turn 18 every single year for the next 20 years. So that's the next
Well,
generation of home buying, that we need to be well positioned to educate them and then also show a career path. If only 1% of loan officers are Hispanic, right out of high school, get plugged in, get NMLS licensed. And that's what one of my focuses is with home. And then
man, if
on
there's one, or go ahead, go no, go ahead.
and then also on top of that, I'm championing all 150 different lenders. I was just featured on Housing Wire, and I wrote an article that someone else doesn't have to lose for you to win. Like, too much in this industry, we're
Yeah.
very competitive. And funny enough, I was calling people to serve. If you focus on your community, if you focus on helping, minority groups get into home ownership, if you focus on educating on how to build up your credit, and to be honest with you, it's not just minority groups that need it. All of America needs this type of education because it's not readily accessible. That can help double and triple up your production.
Um, man, well, one thing is interesting. The 1% of loan officers are that cultural background per capita. 10 years from now, that could be the wealthiest per capita
Yeah,
originators,
yeah,
just because language matters. People that you're
yeah.
connecting at it's a very, and it just that comes to mind.
And I think it's really important to note too that with this organization, it's not just for Hispanics. It's for whoever has a heart to serve. There are some pretty amazing people that just want to connect with the
Of course.
community. There is this one loan officer in Laguna. She doesn't speak any Spanish, but she has a passion for the community. And so she Google translates everything and lets the client know, I don't speak any Spanish. I'm down to be on the phone and I'll translate things, but I will email you a very detailed explanation about absolutely everything. And that's how she gets her business. So
Wow.
it's not so much of this organization isn't just to have an impact for Hispanic loan officers. It's for everybody that wants to serve that community. And there's a lot of Hispanics that don't even speak Spanish or might not even feel like they're as connected to their Hispanic
Hmm.
roots or heritage, that I wanted it to be a very open group that we just were focused on serving and educating.
But why is that so important to you? Inclusion.
That's so important to me because that's how we're able to impact more people. Like the minute that you create barriers and you're like, well, we're just going to be Spanish speakers over here, then you leave out some pretty amazing people that might be Hispanic, but they might not speak Spanish. And then if you also say, well, this is just going to be wholesale, because that was a very big conversation early on. Like, is this an organization just for wholesale LOs? What about the retail loan officers? And I said I didn't want to leave anybody out. Culture matters. And it's very
Amen.
important as an organization that we don't leave anybody out and that they have a home with home. So regardless where you're at, you will always have a home with our organization and we will empower your success. Regardless of what brokerage you're at, regardless of what lender you send your business, we are there to empower you, the originator. And I think that's what's making a difference.
I do want to yeah, acknowledge that spirit of your thought, and also say it's heavy on me. I'm gonna say that um I think how we compete, and I would like your thoughts on this. How we compete is reflected in what we as bit organizations, as people do to innovate and better serve customers in the marketplace. If we overly talk, let's say, um, ad hominem or disrespectful about one another, it confuses. There are diminishing returns to it. It
Yeah,
confuses the industry, and the lagging effects for the consumer are actually negative, because people that are confused can't think. People that
yeah,
can't think can't act as effectively. So I do that came to mind because, like, there's a difference between competition, I think, culture
yeah,
and disrespect.
yeah,
And when a culture, whether it's a country, an organization, disrespects its brothers and sisters, its
yeah,
neighbors, it hurts everybody. That's why I think it's so beautiful about the Judeo-Christian West, the idea of loving one's neighbor.
yeah,
Because, like, I don't even like my neighbor. They're always
yeah,
like doing weird stuff, and I don't understand them. But
yeah,
I got to turn the other. So that comes the inclusion piece. That, oh yeah, it's the Culture Matters podcast. Like, there's a difference between competition and disrespect. And I
yeah.
think in our culture today, that hasn't, you know, we have to talk about it, live it. So I'm curious
Yeah,
your thoughts on that, or maybe you see it
absolutely.
differently. I mean, you're
No, I 100% agree. The minute that you start to talk negatively, I just think there's so much work to do that why focus on the bad? Now, there's a difference between discussing an opportunity, right? Like I can say, hey, there's an opportunity within this organization for us to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going to negatively speak about it. I'm going to positively speak about the opportunity and say
yes,
we could do this way and that would equate to more market share. um, I think that's very important to note, but how you speak is very important. It is so important for you not to have negativity, because the thing about negative comments, if that comes out, then it's like, where's your heart at? Why do you think negatively like that? And if you think negatively about this one situation, what else are you thinking negatively about?
great,
So
great point.
it's I find it very important that my heart is pure and that my heart is good, and I'm always doing a heart check of why am I doing this? What even when things are stressful, even when things are
Yep.
overwhelming, I constantly go back, especially being a leader and relying on so many different teams. I go back and I'm like, okay, let me do a heart check. Like, where am I at? How am I feeling? Why am I frustrated about that? And then what am I trying to get people to do? That's the bigger part. I'm not one to manipulate people, but I am one to lead people. And if I speak negatively or if I act negatively, that might derail what I'm trying to accomplish. So what am I trying to accomplish with this person? Especially because I'm coaching a lot of people, especially with my organization. Like they're all volunteers, they're all working for
Wow.
free. So they technically don't have to do anything. They don't have to, show up, but yet I have all of these C-level leaders that will show up. Like I have a chief technology officer for the last 6 months has been building a learning management system in Spanish and English, arguably
Wow.
working 40 hours for me a week for free because he believes in our vision and where we're headed. But at the same
Wow.
time, I also am focused on coaching him up because he's never been a C-level leader. So I'm coaching him up on polishing him up on different things that he might say or act or do. That's what is very fun as a leader, but also you have to make sure that you're always positive with the way that you're communicating things. And I don't think that someone else has to be negatively portrayed for us to win.
How do you what do you think about the core value struggle well? Where do you put that to use, or where have you seen that being a component, if we were to put like language wise in your, I guess, but what do you think of struggle well? What does it mean to
Um,
you?
it means that no matter a struggle is inevitable. I think that's what that saying means. It means struggle well. It means in life, you're going to face obstacles. You're going to face, it's funny because I joke around with some people that life has a funny way of playing tricks on us where things might be going great professionally, but then personally or health wise
Oh
or
yeah.
family or something. So I think struggle well to me means that struggle is always going to happen. Things are not going to be perfect all of the time, that it's very important for you to struggle well, get up every single day, have that positive mental focus, and decide to control what you can control and give it your all. And at the end of the day, if you gave 100% no matter what came against your way, then you struggled well.
Mm. How have you owned unique this year so far? And I'll share mine.
Um, well, really, this whole year has been owning unique. Because although I'm good at public speaking, I don't like it.
Yeah, you're
I'm
great.
an introvert extrovert, so I like to be behind the scenes and I like to promote more people than I like to be promoted. But this year, particularly, I've hit so many milestones. One in power, two with home, three. I'm an author of Housing Wire.
Wow,
Our
amazing.
organization has gotten 1.8 billion earned media impressions. This week alone, I had
Wow.
Associated Press reach out for an interview, and it was supposed to be an interview just talking about special purpose credit programs. And suddenly I started talking about the organization that they want to do a huge cover and fly a photographer out to do a whole segment on us. So this whole year has been owning
Wow.
unique and just saying yes to everything that comes up.
I've owned unique by uh opening up more on the Culture Honors podcast.
Good. What in what ways have you done that? I mean, I've only known you briefly, but you seem like a very open guy.
I'm trying to share more of myself, my insights, my thoughts in a conversational way with the guest that adds to the conversation without diminishing, because it predominantly it's been hard interview, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to open up more so I can,
Have a dialogue and people understand your heart
yeah,
as
like
well, not just,
yeah,
yeah,
and that was something never, if you go back in the show, especially, it was just more hard journalistic. Barbara
yeah,
Walters, especially like we're talking like we known each other 10 years, that which we clearly we have a lot in common, I think. And but like, yeah, I would, if someone comes on like the fourth time, I'll be more
yeah,
like, so that's how think I'm trying to own unique. Where would you say that show the way showed up in your career? And for those that don't know, we're talking about the EPM values right now.
yeah. Um, that's tough to say because I feel like as a leader, you're always showing the way. Like no one knows where you're headed, where you're going, but you have to paint the vision of where you're headed. and get everyone else to buy in. So as a leader, I've always shown the way, regardless of what role, going back to when I was a worship leader at 12,
Yeah.
and I'm leading people to worship and I'm showing them the way, if you will, to every single role. So I think that that's something that you embody, and that it's some people just have it in them that they can show the way and they can naturally lead. Like we're natural born leaders. No one had to show us how to be a leader because we have that instinct within us.
You just gave me an insight. I'm thinking it better be the right way. Like we're
Yes.
always showing the way. The question is, which way are
Yeah.
we going? And I think that's a blind. I gotta look at what the definition to the show the way is, but there, it's like you're right. It's always showing the way. Right? It's the Sith or the Jedi. Which way am I going?
Yeah. And
That's powerful insight.
absolutely. And you know, it's okay that sometimes you might show the wrong way. One of the most impactful things that I heard Matt Ishbia say, someone asked him, "What was the biggest mistake that you've ever made?" And instantly, without even hesitating, he goes, "I have no idea because the minute that I make a mistake, I change it that quickly."
Wow.
So you're constantly evolving. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that leaders are human and we might make mistakes as we're showing people the way, but it's so important as a leader to take out that compass and say, "Hey guys, we're rerouting. This
Uh,
changed. We're going over here and we're going to head in that direction."
struggle well, own unique, show the way, unify through collaboration. I think that's my favorite one because the C in Culture Matters stands for collaboration. Give first, intend to help it get started today. I already seen you unify through collaboration because immediately we met, you're like, hey, meet this person, know this person. This is what they're about. That like speaks to my soul. So, but I guess what are your general thoughts on that um, value about
Yeah,
unifying through collaboration and what's the
absolutely.
fruit of that?
I think collaboration is the strongest thing that we have as humans. You know, we arguably through collaborating, there have been some great empires that were built, like Rome, the Aztecs, the
Oh
Mayans.
yeah.
Like if you look back, the pyramids, it's like how did these groups of people unite and do this when there wasn't technology around? And it was through collaborating. It was through how do we do this with the resources that we have? How do we do that? So I think that's the biggest secret weapon that we have as a community is collaborating and making sure that we're all building effectively and staying humble and recognizing that we don't know it all and we don't have to know it all. But as a group, we can ping off of each other's ideas and become better together.
Hmm. Rogelio, this was amazing. I can't wait till next time already. For our audience that wants to follow you, what's your Instagram? Fastest way to connect with you?
Yeah. So Instagram is my favorite platform to use, although I'm also on Facebook. But my Instagram is rogelio.home because home ownership is so important to me. And that's kind of what my whole purpose is in life right now. So that's how you can follow me.
If you're listening to this episode, share this with a friend, somebody that cares about culture, leadership, the spirit of collaboration. Leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. I would listen to this at least 3 times and we'll have you back.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.